I keep seeing this term pop up in all the different forums talking about web development called tutorial purgatory. This is when you feel stuck. You keep taking tutorials and you don't feel like you're getting ahead. You come out of the tutorials with very little practical knowledge to take forward. The tutorials might promise this simplified experience, or the tutorials use all sorts of different third-party add-ons and plugins to make this thing exciting and easy to make this first time. But then once you want to change anything, you're left with this dead project you don't really understand. Maybe you've found yourself in this place. I know that I have definitely spent a lot of time over the years kind of trying to get a shortcut or trying to get a lot of information quickly. The goals for this post are to just take a second look and really decide what tutorial purgatory is. Maybe there's a better name for it. Figure out if you're in it, and discuss some ways that you can avoid it or get out of it, or continue to use tutorials but with a more positive outcome. I believe that everybody means well, and that the people creating tutorials are genuinely excited and they want to share what they've learned. So I don't think that tutorials are the problem necessarily. Collectively, web development is marketed as this sort of, it's easy, you could do it, anyone can do it. And that's nice to have that attitude. But a lot of the people who are saying that after, thousands of hours of late night figuring stuff out. Once they figured it out, it sounds easy, and in retrospect, it was easy. You did learn it. It is possible. And so the people writing the tutorials mean well, but a lot of times they take all that hard work that they did and they simplify it. Oh, now that I understand it, I can show you this way to do it very easily. But in that process, you can't really transfer all of the learning that you did, all the things that went wrong, all the things you adjusted, all the things you did differently, all the little like aha moments that clicked for you are really hard to transfer in the tutorial. So what you end up with is this thing, you could call it the happy path. It's the perfect way to program this one thing as long as nothing else changes. And its main goal isn't really to be an end product. It's to most clearly show the steps to make it in a way that's fun and easy and doesn't run into any problems. Does that make sense? So you're sold this idea that programming is easy. They're going to teach it to you. You pick out this tutorial. It sounds fun. Maybe it's make your own Twitter clone right now in the next 2 hours. And you watch the video and you follow along and you're excited and positive. Maybe the teacher says, just go to my GitHub repo and download the beginning of the project, because I didn't want you to have to learn how to set up all the build tools. And you're thinking, okay, well, what are build tools? You might be thinking, well, what is GitHub? So that's complicated. All of a sudden, you're expected to learn this new technology so that you can quickly get set up to write some JavaScript or whatever it is. Maybe the author doesn't like writing CSS, so they say, I already pulled in Bootstrap and these other CSS frameworks, and as long as you write the markup the same as me, everything should look fine. There's just so many things that the teacher doesn't know about you. It doesn't know what you're comfortable with, what your computer is like, what your setup is like, how you're going to take these concepts and how they're going to fit in with the rest of your foundation that you have already or don't have already. I could name 100 different scenarios for how you can get tangled up, but let's just keep it nice and general. There's this happy, confident, excited person who wants to learn how to make an app or learn how to code or, however they think about it. They want to make something and they're excited, and that's great. And so they think, okay, here's this tutorial. This tutorial's great. It says I'm going to be able to do this thing that I'm trying to do. That's really exciting. And it's great. It's working out. You start following along. You start copying the people. You're seeing like visual feedback. The things you're doing are working. Maybe, hopefully, everything seems so easy. So you start to feel, oh my gosh, like if this is how easy it is, wow, I'm like halfway done with my Twitter clone. Wait till, I guess if this only takes 2 hours, then I could probably build any app that I've ever seen in a week, right? And then something breaks, or you finish the tutorial and you want to add a feature, or you go away for a week and then you come back to your project and maybe you can't recognize what happened, or maybe one of the packages changed, or some kind of code that you're counting on for it to work 3 months later when you come back to the project is defunct or broken or no longer maintained or something like that. So for whatever reason it is, it's going to be different for everyone. You might come to this point where you feel totally lost. You were, whoop, yeah, I'm doing so good. And then and now you feel really bad. And it's not so bad the first time. You're like, well, okay, I'll spend another Saturday. Maybe I'll do the tutorial again, that's a good idea. Or maybe I'll try a different tutorial. And so you come down to this point where you kind of give up, and then you come back around and, you're going to try it again. And so there you are. I'm going to try it again, basically. I'm going to find the tutorial that's going to teach me all of the things. So unfortunately, because you're not building these foundational conceptual understandings that all link together, you're probably going to go through the same situation again. I found a tutorial. It's going to be easy. This time is the time. It's going good. Oh no, I actually don't really know how to write HTML or CSS or JavaScript, and I don't know what server-side rendering is, and what do you mean I have to set up DNS? And okay, well, all right, well maybe I got the wrong tutorial. And so you start doing this again. You didn't put that much skin in the game, so it's not that big of a deal. But once you've done this, some people do this for weeks, or they stay up all night, or they do it for months, or in some cases years, of hoping that one of these tutorials is going to be the break that you need, that somehow this tutorial is going to connect all the dots and you are going to know how to program a very complex web application suddenly, or even a simple web application. And after you've gone through this cycle so many times, each time, I think I can do it. It's like a drug addiction or something. You think, oh, I'm going to find the tutorial. It's going to work. Oh, it seems so easy. Oh, no, not again. I don't really understand this stuff. I'm a loser. Or I'm terrible. I'm never going to figure this out. I've sunk so much time in this already that the only way for me to get out is to find another tutorial, because now that I've spent months trying to learn, I can't really go back to the drawing board and learn it properly, concept by concept, or at least that's what you think. So this is sort of like this, this like quicksand or this whirlpool thing. You sort of freak out in the quicksand, and the more you move, the more you get stuck. And it's important to note that this doesn't just happen with beginners. I mean, even me, I think a year or so ago, I thought I'm going to learn how to write a server with Phoenix, by the end of the weekend. And well, I watched a tutorial, an expensive tutorial about it, and I got a thing done, and it didn't really work, because I was just doing it to learn quickly, or trying to learn quickly. I didn't really have a project to make with Phoenix. I took the Ruby on Rails, the Rails tutorial, got it all the way done. I could log in, authentication, all this stuff. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter how good the tutorial is sometimes. That's a great tutorial. That's a very thoughtful, good tutorial if you want to learn Rails. But because I wasn't invested in the right way with the right tools at the right time, it didn't make sense to me for me. So the sort of clickbait thing with tutorial purgatory is, you're kind of saying like, I'm in hell. This is this is the worst. And that creates sort of this like idea that purgatory is hell, and there's this other side which is heavenly and perfect. I don't think that's really how it works. I think I'll have to draw like a diagram for this or something, but it's like you're going somewhere and then you want to get there so fast. You see some things that you think can help you get it there faster, and you want to do it faster, but you're not going to do it faster. You just can't learn that quickly in most cases. You can't just be shown something and have the mind meld, all the information just transferred over to you of thousands and thousands of mistakes, unless the tutorial is made with steps where you hit those walls and learn from those mistakes as part of the tutorial, which is what we try to do a lot. But it's hard to write them that way. I think a lot more than a kind of heaven and hell scenario. It's kind of like a whirlpool or something. You're on your way to a destination, but your desire to learn quickly in a reality that you can't learn quickly creates kind of opposing forces and sticks you in this sort of Bermuda Triangle whirlpool that you're stuck in. And the other part about it is that purgatory is somewhere you kind of like go to wait, or you're kind of forced somewhere, like you die and then they're going to figure out what to do with you. That hasn't happened in this case at all. You or me, in many cases, we chose to try to do this thing. We tried to do this tutorial, and we tried to follow along with it. Like, we did this to ourselves. What's the alternative? You gotta just stop. I mean, the quickest way to get out of your purgatory tutorial situation is to stop expecting that type of results from that type of learning tool. When we start to teach a subject, our core guide kind of ends up being, if you could only know one thing about this subject, what would it be? Because then you can at least walk away with that, right? And then if you could only know two things about this subject, what would it be? How do those two things fit together? Now, if you only could know three things about this subject, and so on. So you're building off of what is the most important thing to know if you want to be able to produce something, of any value, which sort of goes with sort of the lean methodology of what is the most simple thing we can have. Because I guarantee you that understanding the basics of HTML and being able to put an HTML page up on the internet that has your contact information is going to be better than knowing, how to filter an array in the case where you don't really understand what arrays are. Just fill in the blanks there with something confusing, because I don't know what sort of languages you're into or anything. But my point is to fully understand one concept and then to start adding things in. But they can't just be arbitrary. You can't just go and memorize the JavaScript language. I don't think it's going to stick that way for 99% of people, maybe some people. So beyond taking these sort of baby steps and connecting the concepts together, you need something else. You need a project, not a project in the tutorial, a project of your own. Maybe you like collecting magic cards, or maybe you like baseball, or you like drag racing, or making plants, or potting plants, But whatever you can think of, if you can think of a project and you can start applying each concept to your project instead of whatever might be in a tutorial, and you start learning how to read the documentation for whatever language you're using, and you learn all of these conceptual foundations, and you start to put them in a real practical project that's unique to you, that's how you're going to connect all these things together. If you're in one of these projects where the teacher says, "Oh, download my GitHub, make sure you put Bootstrap in it, add all these CSS rules that we didn't talk about, go again, grab material design, add that," and just all these things that 500 packages that all fit together. Here's this really cool way to format a date with just one keystroke. You're gonna learn how to do what they're doing. You're gonna learn how to copy what they're doing. You're gonna learn how to follow their directions, which has some value to it. But you're not going to learn why they chose to do those things. You're not going to learn what happens when you do them wrong. You're not going to start to collect all these concepts and put them together in a way that's going to be useful later. So what I suggest is that you figure out something that you have a genuine enthusiasm for that has nothing to do with programming for the most part. Something in your life, something you're interested in, some hobby, and you start to think about how the various concepts of functionality and data structures and visual user interface options and how all those things fit together, and then start a project for something. It can be arbitrary, and slowly start piecing it together piece by piece. You'll find that you run into these little milestones where you're like, oh, I know, okay, I learned this, and this, and they fit together. Great. And you can take that and leave. You'll have it with you forever. Whereas if you're taking an advanced Angular or some kind of proprietary framework, Angular 3 filtering methods or something, that's not going to come with you. A lot of people can't think of projects. I've found there's a lot of questions on Quora and places saying, what projects can I do to practice? And so I'm not in any way affiliated with this company. I'm not, I don't have any affiliate links or anything. I'm just a really big fan of this book. I hand out the link to it so much that I get deleted and caught, or I get flagged for spamming people. But it's from Pragmatic Programmers, and it is exercises for programmers. You can check it out, so I don't have to butcher the authors' names. But it's a bunch. It basically, the first chapter goes through this whole problem, how to break it down, how to break it into smaller pieces, how to figure out what pieces are important, figure out what sort of functionality you need to look for, how to break things down, and it's language agnostic. So it doesn't matter what language you're using. You can use any language you want. I went through the whole thing with HTML and CSS and JavaScript one time, and then when I was learning how to use Vue, which is a JavaScript library, I went through it again with the Vue, and so then I could see all the neat differences and benefits and pros and cons of each. It's pretty cool. So if you want to learn a language, I really recommend this thing. If you can get through this thing, even if you just do 10 of these problems and you read it and you really get what they're saying, learn how to break problems down into pieces, then you can start to look at the documentation and say, okay, well, I have this list of stuff. What do they call lists in this language? And I need to kind of go look at each item in this list and do something to it. How do they loop through lists in this language? And I need to kind of check if some item in this list, it is featured, or if it's a post written by my mom or whatever it is, I need to do something different with it there. Like, how do they deal with conditional kind of logical operator stuff in this language? And I need to show this thing on the screen. How do they do that in Java? I'm used to writing with CSS and having the box model and the DOM, but maybe I'm going to work in this new language that represents visual stuff differently. Or maybe you're learning something on the server or Node.js, and there is no visual side of things. Maybe there's no HTML involved, or no visual layer. So this book gives you a bunch of cool problems to solve, and then you can kind of piece together. You have to force yourself to learn how to solve these problems instead of just there's no answers in here. So you have to learn how to solve these problems for yourself. And you're going to remember the concepts that came together for you to solve those. So if you're stuck in the tutorial whirlpool, a little like a trademark or something up there, I highly recommend that book, Exercises for Programmers. I think it's, or any set of exercises you can find out there, really. But I think that this is a great book. The main way to quit doing tutorials is just to quit doing tutorials. Just stop all the way, 100%. But I don't think that tutorials aren't always bad. There's going to come a time when you're not grasping for tutorials to try to hurry up, but that you are more confident and you have a little more command over whatever languages you're using or whatever part of the design field you're working in. And you're going to be able to view the tutorials differently. You're going to have enough information to kind of judge the tutorial. Is this the sort of tutorial that's just kind of going to land me in this dead end thing with a half finished like Evernote clone app? Or is this a tutorial where the person is breaking down a concept that I can take away with me? Or there's just all sorts of different types of tutorials, and you'll learn over time how to decide which are which. So there's lots of ways to still use tutorials, but I would make these adjustments. If it's a text image kind of based tutorial, don't follow along. Do not go down the list and type whatever they typed and then look at your code and type whatever they typed. Don't do that. Read the whole thing once, maybe twice. Go down and say, okay, here the author's talking about objects and mapping objects and changing data. Here's a few methods or something. I can see, okay, that's a little concept. All right, now let's go down to this part. Okay, here, this part is about some sort of hashing or something. And this, okay, so whatever, you break it down into pieces, write it down with, paper and pencil, and then take that information and go build something else. Don't build what they're building. If they're building a to-do app, you build a whatever volleyball game or something. Figure out what the concepts are. Figure out a way to practice using those concepts in some project that's meaningful to you. The same thing goes if it's a video tutorial. You can just watch video tutorials like they're TV. Maybe you don't want to watch Netflix. Maybe you want to watch Brad Traversy make some cool stuff, or, watch it. Don't follow along though. Watch it for fun. Watch it like a TV show. Maybe at the end you can say, that was a good one. I think that one will be useful. Or you might say, well, it was fun watching that guy code, but that's not really what I want to do. That's something you could learn too. That's not for me. I don't want to be writing SQL queries or something like that. That's an important thing to note. But if you decide it's a good one, watch it again, write down the concepts. Like, oh, okay, they were connecting these databases, and so they needed this like object relational mapping thing called an ORM, and they chose to use Mongoose. Okay, so I see data has to be kind of changed a little, and there's you get the concepts figured out, and then apply them to your own project totally separately from the tutorial. Man, I hope this video isn't too long. I thought it was going to be real quick. Recap. Are you doing a ton of tutorials, but you're not learning anything? Just stop. Stop doing these tutorials. Buy this book. Figure out a project that you want to work on. If you can't think of one, ask a friend. Everybody's got an app idea or something, right? Doesn't matter. Just pick something that's unique to you. Then learn how to do it. Use the documentation at the Mozilla Developer Network and figure it out step by step, depending on what language you want to do, how to do it. That's how you're going to learn. You're not going to learn by following someone else. You're just going to learn how to follow someone else. And a real job, the senior developer is not going to want to sit there and tell you step by step what to do, I promise. On top of that, you have some other options. You can use tutorials. Just break them down into useful information and apply them to your own project. Don't follow them. Don't follow along with the video tutorial. Don't follow along with the written tutorial. Break them apart, find out what's important to you, and then go practice it on your own project. That's how you're going to remember it. And that's all I have to say about that. If you're interested in some more formal training that sort of follows the ideas of that book we were talking about and offers you structure and teamwork and daily exercises, check out our program.